Dr. Carrie Hepburn here. I am here to talk with you quickly about some work that our organization is doing with a school district. We are writing their curriculum. So, what they did was they recently purchased a resource for their teachers to implement, and they would like a guaranteed and viable curriculum. What they have learned over the last couple of years working with our organization is that purchasing a resource is not a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So we're super excited about that, and we're helping them as they're developing a guaranteed and viable curriculum for really the one of the first times that they've done this. So the first thing that we did was we took the resource and the grade spans that this resource encompassed, and we developed a scope and sequence of what would be assessed. And then made sure that that aligned with their priority or essential or power standards, whatever you may call them in your district. So we did that. We took the current assessments that the resource had, which actually ended up being over like 28 pages per assessment at the end of every 30 days, kids would be taking these 28-page assessments, and we were able to shrink that down to make sure that it aligned with their priority standards. And we went from like a 28-page assessment to a 9-page assessment with a writing prompt. Okay. And again, we used all of the tools that were within this resource, but there were so many things in there that it wouldn't have been possible for teachers to be able to go through it. So we developed a scope and sequence that is for that entire years worth of grade spans that are using this resource so we can see how the units and how students will be assessed over multiple years to ensure that we're preparing students for being successful readers and writers at the end of the time that this resource is done and they're ready for their next level of learning, right? So, from those assessments, then what we're able to do is go into each and every unit and start thinking about how do we design the actual unit so students are successful on the end of unit test. And so, as they have all of these units that go together, it gets them ready for all of their standards, right? So, we were able to kind of look through that. And so, what's so interesting is that this is particular resources green, has all greens, state approved resource, and it says it gives you a scope and sequence. Okay, so we pull out the scope and sequence. We're going through all of the lessons, and it's each unit supposed to be 30 days. Okay, there are 67 lessons that teachers can teach that are 40 minutes long in their 60-minute period. So there are 67 lessons that they can do for 30 days. Okay. And that's not even including writing. All right. So the district values reading and writing every single day. So as we're looking through this, we're like, oh, well, one of the reasons so many things get to green is they have so much stuff in there. So the words that you'll hear them use when they're selling their product to you is that you have a menu. It's kind of like a buffet. What do your kids need? You can choose this or you can choose that. Okay. That is not a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So that doesn't ensure if every teacher is doing that or every grade level is doing that, you're not certain that those skills are building year after year, or even from the beginning of the year until the next. If we're just kind of hodgepodging and putting things together, that isn't the number one indicator of student achievement in a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So you have to make a plan. So what our organization is doing now is we've created the assessments. We've got the scope and sequence, the big one. Then we've got their assessments created for that scope and sequence. And now we're going through all of those 67 lessons that are available plus writing and paring those down to 28 days because they only have 30 days for this unit. And we know the end of the unit test is going to need to take 2 days. One day for the reading, or not even a whole day, probably 20 to 30 minutes. And then they'll use the rest of that time to start generating their ideas for writing, and then they'll need time to write. So that's why we wanted to keep 2 days for writing. So what we're doing is going through that, paring it down to the 28 days, and then adding all of the lessons and all of the standards that will be taught to that scope and sequence, but they're not necessarily even assessed. Some of them will be, right? So we're mapping it out. Then our organization goes through and we try to teach it. Does this make sense? Right? Is this going to work? Is this going to flow? Because you can see I've taken this particular assessment and I jotted down notes that I know students need to have these skills. Well, guess what? I already know when I'm looking inside the lessons and I'm doing this, I'm going, ooh, we're going to have to tweak this because this doesn't really explicitly teach kids how to do this. So I have to make another plan on top of that, right? So after I teach it, and then I'll revise it, and then I'm going to actually like write it out fully. And then I will sit down, I'll meet with teachers, and then we'll give professional learning on each and every unit and how to bring the standards in this unit to life. So hopefully, if you are in curriculum, you're thinking about it this way. I get really disheartened because I see so many organizations every 5 or 6 years, and sometimes five is really not that fast. Sometimes people do it even faster, but they'll buy something and they'll make people just like try to navigate it. Can you imagine trying to teach and figure out how to turn 67 lessons into a 30-day plan on top of trying to navigate a 28-page assessment? Like, they don't have time for that. It's not fair. It pulls away from them being able to do instruction, and it pulls away from us ensuring that we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So hopefully that's work that you're doing. If you're not, consider it. If you need some help with that, let us know. We love doing this. Have a great day.